Good evening, peoples. Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation back at you, and I wanted to do a final update for Ymax, Ymag, and Ulty. And actually, it's important that you watch this, and it's fairly positive, but there are some nuances. So let me jump into that. I'm going to start with Ulty, because Ulty is the stepchild, the wild child. I think people have given up on it. I've just about given up on it, but I have a small, I think I have 300 shares. No, 350. And that was my initial purchase when it was around high 15s, low 16s, and it just held it. So I may just let it go down. If it reverse splits, so be it. It's not enough shares that it matters. And by having some, it allows me to watch it more. At least I look at the payday, I see what they own, right? So that's what I wanted to go through a little bit of Ulti, because it's the only one that I think requires more skill to do an estimate than the other ones on the YMAG and YMAX. But I want to point out some nuances that I see in YMAG and YMAX, and I want your feedback on what you think is going on, because I've certainly noticed something that's very different this month. All right, so on Ulti. Look, I look at a list of companies they own, and overall they're pretty good. Obviously, they're all high IVs with one exception. So there's a couple new things. I think they have owned Broadcom before, but let me point out a couple of things that I know about Broadcom from way back in the day when I've been following them. I had a lot of friends go over from the company that I worked for my last 12 years of employment before I retired. And then um, I had people go over there, and they've made 39 acquisitions that I looked up. And the most recent is VMware. Well, when I was with a big tech company that I was with, and now they're part of Dell Technologies, they sort of merged with Dell Technologies, so they're just called Dell Technologies. The company that I was with doesn't exist as a standalone company. But Broadcom was a partner company, and the company that I was with back in the day bought VMware. What is VMware? Well, it was the leader. It's up in Microsoft land. It's up in Washington, state of Washington. Brilliant company, brilliant founder. And the company I was with sort of left it alone, let it run as its own software company and did its own thing. And I know a lot of people that moved from within the company I worked for to also go work in and at VMware. And it was very successful in the day, but it's one of those companies that slowly there's been competition, but they have core strength. Well, the reason Broadcom bought them, and the reason I'm telling you this, it's very interesting because Broadcom has a history. Another company they bought many years ago that I used to work with when I first started in tech as a young engineer and then moved into sales support, tech support, before moving into sales and management and other positions. So Broadcom acquired that company. What did they do? They milked the license revenue and immediately in buying that company, and it was dying out. It was a company that had all these software products that were mainframe, and then they evolved into Unix, and as the whole spectrum, there was no cloud software, there was no cloud. The internet was just forming. So Broadcom has a history of doing this. Well, their latest acquisition in VMware, they acquired VMware. VMware has a lot of government customers. They have a lot of customers, period, but the government also has many licenses because you want to maximize your hardware. If you have a powerful piece of hardware and you put VMware on it, then you can break it up almost like pieces, right? If you had a person and you could pull an arm off and a leg off and say, do this task, do this task. And that's kind of what VMware, it lets you virtualize the hardware and run various software on it and do different tasks. So virtualization. And that's that existed way back in the day when I first started in mainframes. We had from IBM, we had VM, virtual machine, and you would run that, and then you could run other operating systems. So the concept's been there, but these things get broader and broader. So here's my point on Broadcom. Broadcom bought VMware and they have a ton of government licenses. What do they do immediately? They go out and they jack those license fees up like 80%, 100%. And what is the companies that are using them? They don't have an alternative. So they're scrambling. So for the first couple of years, they get so much more revenue out of that product that it pays for itself. And VMware will survive and do other things, and they'll create other products. So it's a great acquisition, but it's kind of a cutthroat approach. And I've seen it in other companies. I don't know that Cisco did it as much, but Cisco made something like 80 acquisitions in the 90s leading into that whole dot-com bubble. They were probably the leading acquisition company. And since they were but you look at it today and Cisco's nothing compared to what they used to be. They were one of the four horsemen. They were giants. That's why everybody that gets on NVIDIA, they're a great company. They're going to be around for a number of years, but I guarantee you their hardware margins are going to get eroded by competition, no matter what lead they have. It's usually the software companies that survive. So Broadcom, by its very nature, is sort of a chip company, semiconductor, but they've made so many broad acquisitions. So anyway, keep your eye on them. And why I highlighted them is I think they're new in Ulty. They're new for right now. Maybe they bought them before. The symbol doesn't look anything like Broadcom, right? Because they then are part of a bigger company. But Broadcom is no joke. They're pretty serious. There's also some Nancy Pelosi stuff out there about how she bought call options and bought stock out in the next year. Well, Broadcom's going to do very well by that VMware acquisition. I was tempted to go make some option plays, but I just decided I get my hands are full in other things. So sorry to go on so long, but I think maybe I educated some people that don't know the depth of Broadcom. They're a serious player. They're a great company. I don't like how they bully companies with that, but they're not the first to do it, and they won't be the last to do it. Amazon, in its own way, does that in their retail space. They don't really do that in the cloud space, but they do that in the retail space. And Microsoft is notorious for that, putting other companies out of business. Okay, so nothing changed too much since my last report. Broadcom stood out right away. Okay, let's go through the list. I won't go if anyone else. And I think this whole QQQ is newer for them. I love the fact my favorite company. If you ask me, Bruce, what do you think is going to be the biggest software company that exists in 5 years? I would say it's Palantir. I think that Palantir could be bigger than Microsoft in time. And that's a statement. Microsoft's a $3 trillion company. Palantir, I haven't looked lately on their market cap. I'm guessing 500, 800. Somebody can tell me in the comments. I mean, I can go look it up quickly, but I didn't before I'm doing this. Love, love, love Palantir. Why? Because they have a unique ontology software that will actually help companies utilize AI. There's all this talk of what's AI going to do? Well, you got to have hardware like NVIDIA. You got to have that right now. But the software is what's really going to make companies productive. They started in the government, military, other kinds of things. Everybody said, yeah, but they're nowhere in the commercial space. Well, guys, they figured it out. It's a very complicated, very sophisticated software, their framework. And they started creating camps, and you started looking at, they would offer the engineers from a company that was looking at Palantir and bring them into those camps and then show them. And then they would go home with sort of a quasi working model to then go back and tell their companies, yeah, I can see how this thing's going to work. And so that over the last 12 to 18 months is really got them in the commercial space. Now you're seeing airlines, hospitals. I mean, it applies to any large, company to enable that infrastructure, to enable all that big data, all that stuff to actually be useful and make these companies a lot more productive, or military, or whatever what entity. AARP implemented them. I mean, it's just the amount of things that they're doing is just phenomenal, and I think they're going to have no matter what the Nasdaq does, no matter what the S&P 500 does, I think Palantir is just doesn't mean it's, you could buy it at $30 now and it could pull back to 25. I wouldn't worry in the least. I'd double my investment. It's just a fantastic company. Not everybody feels that way, but I feel that way. Just telling you. Okay, so enough on that. Let's jump back in. So I've lowered my number because the estimate, because they keep dropping no matter what they do. And somebody said, I don't understand, how can the NAV go down? They own the underlying companies. Well, guys, what happens when you buy a stock? Okay, I'm making it up. You buy a stock for $10. You write a covered call for 11 and they give you $1. So you collect that dollar, right? But it doesn't go to 11, so you don't get called out. But guess what? It dropped to 9.5. Now you got to maybe write a 10 or a 10.5, and that's what you paid for it. So you get a little bit of revenue and it keeps dropping. Well, now you're owning a company, and trust me, they made some bad mistakes, and they go, well, I'm never going to be able to write cover calls at 7. I bought it at 10. If I write an 8 or 9 to get any money, I guarantee myself a loss. And it's only going down. So you bite the bullet, you drop your price. Eventually it gets bought out at 7, let's say, on a call. And you said, okay, I collected $1.50 worth of premium in the calls I've written. That's 8.5, but I paid 10. So that's a loss. My capital shrunk. So covered calls aren't a magic, I'm always going to make money. It's just, it's a different entity. If you pick all, but how can you pick all winners when we just went through a big pullback in the markets? That hurts everything, but some things can recover better than others. So the science experiment is ongoing. In general, when I look at their companies, I see pretty good companies, but certainly it hasn't translated yet to an upcycle. So that's all of my info. The rest will go much faster, guys. Got about 3 more minutes and I'll get through these. So let's go into predictions. Let's go up to Ymax first. So you saw my predictions previously. So what's changed? What's that nuance that I referred to? Well, guys, we started last Wednesday, whatever the 6th was, right? So we had declared on the 6th, we were going into ex-dividend. So that night, the shares were 15,225,000 outstanding shares of Ymax. How many shares were of Ymax were owned? We already know what all they own, okay? And so we know how much money they collected on the 8th, but we knew that on the 6th when all the declarations were made. So normally, and this is a nuance, you guys write me in and tell me what you think. So we had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 7, 8, and 9, after the declaration on the 6th, for people to pile in. So at the end of the day on the 6th, there were 15,225,000. Never, and following this for the 3 or 4 months it's existed, have the shares gone down. Normally, everybody starts saying, oh, I want some Ymax, okay? And they start buying Ymax and it goes up, a certain amount of shares. I know some other YouTubers go out there and say, well, how many shares did it go up in the last 30 days? And they get a daily amount and then they figure that out and do it. I didn't like that approach because this isn't a normal 30 days. This is normally the time that everybody knows the payment, and there's normally 4 or 5 trading days and they all pile in it. Well, guess what? After Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that they could have bought it they didn't know what it was going to pay yet because not too many people did videos until 7 or 8. I think I did my first one on 8 or 9. And but we know, so it's only at 15,125. So if anything, it's gone up from the 63 cents to 63.82 cents. Okay. So I'm telling you this on Sunday, Saturday night, Sunday, but it's all coming from Friday's data. Well, how many more chances do people have to buy this? Okay, that the shares are going to then reduce the payout. Well, it's Monday and it's Tuesday at this point. So right now, this thing's hanging in there at 63 cents, almost 64 cents. So I'm saying, okay, if you were super smart, if I could create a conspiracy, I would go out there and I'd tell everybody, do not buy Ymax, okay, until the 14th. They're going to declare before the market opens on the 14th how much they're going to pay. And we would have just left the shares at 15,225,000 and we would have gotten 63 cents. But you can't create a conspiracy. It's like trying to bet on a football game, telling a player to take a dive. You might find a boxer to do it, if they're down and out and they really need the money, but you're not going to get a champion to do that. So the issue here is, but why aren't people buying it? They've had 3 days to buy it. Part of it, I think, is the market fear, the pullback, knowing that this has probably not been a good month because some of the declarations were down on the single stock. So therefore, the pool of money. But I find it really interesting, guys, so I just did a simple use 2.5%. I said, okay, 15,125. I think it's going to go up 2.5% on Monday and 2.5% on Tuesday, which, by the way, guys, the last time. Now, you can buy it on Wednesday and still get paid. You get paid, you have to buy it before Thursday, August 15th. So that means you can buy it on the 14th. You're going to get paid on Friday, August 16th. But that's why I was saying, if you ever try to create a conspiracy, just tell everybody, don't buy it until the 14th and it'll be 63 cents. But nobody ever used that logic before. I didn't dare tell people that. Somebody say, oh, this guy's trying to scam the market, But because of the way Yieldmax operates, they allow for that. All these single stock funds, how many times have you guys decided to go buy a fund because you saw what the declaration was in the morning or even midday and said, oh man, I'm going to go buy some of that Misty. They're paying $1.94. Or, they're paying 303, or I'm buying some of that NVIDIA. They were 268. And we do that, right? We chase yield even though we shouldn't. And here we are. So I'm saying it only gets down to 60.75, but I had it going down to like mid 56 cents. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. But we know for sure that this is the amount of money and we know what the shares are. So if they had to pay on Monday, this is how much they would pay. So we'll see what happens. I want to move through these faster now, guys. So here's Ymax. Same situation, but Ymax didn't drop any. They're still at the same 5,775,000 shares. Obviously, the payout, once the 6 is declared, is fixed. So here's their model. They were going down from 69 cents, I think, to whatever it was, 63, I think I had them going to if they kept on. But all those days, Thursday the 8th and the 9th, nothing changed, peoples. So anyway, now I can show you my final up here at the top where it's all organized. Sorry about the length on Ulty. I just find that some of that. So a reminder, you must buy before August 15th, right? So you got to buy 14th, 13th, or 12th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday gives you the advantage of knowing what you're going to get. So that's that. I call it a conspiracy. I don't really mean it that way. I just mean if we all banded together and just said nobody buy, I mean, you can never do that, right? There's too many independent people. Just go buy on the 14th. Ultimately, why Yieldmax might say, oh, we're going to declare after the day or something, because they do like to have some semblance, right, that a lot of people bought. But don't forget to tell me in the comments, guys, why you think Ymax and Ymag aren't being bought into. I don't even track the share count on Ulty because it's a whole different animal, right? It doesn't help in the payout. I probably should, and I will in the future. So here's what I got. I've got 60.75. I'm going with my 2.5% on Monday and 2.5% on Tuesday. And likely, maybe it'll be 5% on Tuesday and nothing on Monday. Who knows, right? But here I am. So, what are the yields on those? I did update the price to A89. Now, remember, when they announce the yield, they're going to use Tuesday's close price when they announce what they're going to pay, or on Wednesday morning early on the 14th, and you have to buy that day if you want it. So here I am, 60 cents. That's a 40.81 yield based on Friday. Everything moved up except for Ulty. The stepchild just does not, the wild child does not want to play. But I got them paying, I dropped it from 91.5 cents to 79 because their stock is not moving up. That's indicative that they're not making money, or they're winning on some and they're losing on more. I can't necessarily explain it, but it's staring me in the face. But that's still a high yield. So that's what I got, guys. 60, 75, 63, and 79. All right. So thank you. Again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye for now.